The game you're about to see is the most stupid, appalling, disgusting, and disgraceful exhibition of football possibly in the history of the game.
What if I told you that some of football's biggest legends built their careers on lies, corruption, and betrayal?
This is for your career 2026.
Excuse me?
Thank you very much.
Come on.
Come
on.
2026. Come on. It made sense to everyone.
That World Cups were bought, that entire leagues were rigged, and that some of the most beloved players in history were nothing more than cheats? Today we're diving into the biggest scandals that didn't just shock football, they changed it forever. But here's what'll absolutely blow your mind. These weren't just isolated incidents or one-off mistakes. We're talking about systematic corruption that went to the very heart of the beautiful game. Scandals so massive that they brought down governments, destroyed careers, and made fans question everything they thought they knew about football.
Quindi ecco lo spettacolo sportivo che diventa anche uno strumento politico poderoso.
I've spent weeks researching the darkest chapters in football history, uncovering stories that FIFA tried to bury, that clubs wanted forgotten, and that players hoped would never see the light of day. What I discovered will make you realize that the beautiful game has an ugly side that's more shocking than any Hollywood thriller. So buckle up, because we're about to expose the scandals that shook football to its core and changed the sport forever.
Of individuals bring shame and humiliation on football and demand action and change from us all. We cannot allow the reputation of football and FIFA to be dragged through the mud any longer.
Let's start with the scandal that literally rewrote the history books, Calciopoli. The year was 2006, and Italian football was about to be exposed as one giant, corrupt mess. This wasn't just about a few dodgy decisions. This was about an entire system designed to fix matches and manipulate results. Juventus, AC Milan, Fiorentina, Lazio, and Regina were all caught in a web of corruption that involved referees, league officials, and club executives. Phone calls were recorded, evidence was gathered, and when it all came out, it was devastating. The scandal centered around Juventus general manager Luciano Moggi, who had been secretly influencing referee appointments and pressuring officials to favor certain teams. We're talking about Italy's biggest club, with legends like Del Piero, Buffon, and Nedved systematically cheating their way to success. The evidence was overwhelming, said the prosecutor. Phone calls where Moggi was discussing which referees to assign to which matches, conversations about influencing decisions, a complete corruption of the sporting process.
A crisis which has rocked Italian football.
4 top Italian teams have been accused of cheating by fixing matches.
The office of the Italian Football Federation in Rome has been raided by police.
Italian football will never be the same again.
The punishment was brutal. Juventus were stripped of their 2005 and 2006 Serie A titles and relegated to Serie B. AC Milan were docked points. Fiorentina and Lazio faced similar punishments. Italian football's reputation was in tatters. But here's the crazy part. Juventus fans still defended their team. They claimed it was a conspiracy, that other clubs were doing the same thing, that they were being unfairly targeted. The scandal split Italian football down the middle and created divisions that still exist today. Calciopoli didn't just affect the clubs involved, said a football journalist. It made fans question everything. If Juventus could cheat for years without being caught, who else was doing it? Could you trust any result? Moving from Italy to Germany, we have a scandal that rocked the 2006 World Cup. The vote-buying allegations that surrounded Germany's successful bid to host the tournament. This wasn't just about a few dodgy payments. This was about FIFA corruption at the highest level.
Swiss prosecutors have opened a criminal investigation into Franz Beckenbauer over the bid for the 2006 FIFA World Cup in Germany.
In 2015, almost a decade after Germany hosted what many considered a successful World Cup, allegations emerged that the German bid committee had used a slush fund to buy votes from FIFA executive committee members. We're talking about millions of euros in suspicious payments, secret meetings, and a systematic campaign to corrupt the bidding process. The evidence suggests that Germany's World Cup bid was built on corruption, said a FIFA investigator. Payments were made to accounts controlled by FIFA officials, meetings were held in secret, and votes were bought. The scandal implicated some of the biggest names in German football, including Franz Beckenbauer, the Kaiser himself. The man who had lifted the World Cup as both player and manager was now accused of being involved in one of FIFA's biggest corruption scandals.
Criminal investigations against
people very well known in the German football realities, that is particularly Mr. Franz Beckenbauer and other members of the former organizational committee of the Football World Cup 2006. The proceedings relate in particular to allegations of fraud, of criminal mismanagement, of money laundering and so-called misappropriation.
But here's what made this scandal even more shocking. Germany 2006 was supposed to be the good World Cup. After the corruption allegations surrounding Qatar 2022 and Russia 2018, people looked back at Germany 2006 as an example of how to do things right. The revelation that it might have been just as corrupt was devastating. It destroyed people's faith in FIFA, said a sports corruption expert. If even the clean World Cups were bought, then what hope was there for the integrity of the sport? But if you think FIFA corruption started with Germany 2006, you're wrong. The organization had been rotten to the core for decades, and it all came crashing down in 2015 with the biggest scandal in sports history. May 27, 2015. Dawn raids in Zurich. FBI agents arresting FIFA officials in their luxury hotel rooms. This wasn't just a scandal, this was a takedown that had been years in the making. The charges were staggering: racketeering, wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy. We're talking about over $200 million in bribes and kickbacks spanning more than 2 decades. FIFA officials had been selling World Cup votes, marketing rights, and tournament hosting rights to the highest bidder. Sepp Blatter, FIFA's president for 17 years, was forced to resign.
It's time for you to resign.
How about you?
Surely it's time for you to say goodbye to FIFA. The scandals, the corruption, you're the boss after all. Sir, surely it's time to go.
Chuck Blazer, the larger-than-life American FIFA executive, became an FBI informant, secretly recording conversations with other officials. The entire FIFA Executive Committee was under investigation. This was organized crime masquerading as sports administration, said the FBI director. FIFA officials treated the organization like their personal ATM, taking bribes and kickbacks while betraying the trust of football fans around the world.
They were expected to uphold the rules that keep soccer honest and to protect the integrity of the game. Instead, they corrupted the business of worldwide soccer to serve their interests and to enrich themselves.
The scandal exposed the rotten heart of world football. World Cup hosting rights had been sold to the highest bidder. Marketing deals had been rigged. Entire confederations had been run like criminal enterprises. But the most shocking revelation? How long it had been going on. This wasn't a recent development. FIFA had been corrupt for decades. The beautiful game had been run by criminals, and nobody had been able to stop them. The FIFA scandal changed everything, said a sports lawyer. It showed that no organization, no matter how powerful, was above the law. But it also showed how deep the corruption went in football. Now let's talk about a scandal that didn't just affect one club or one country. It affected an entire generation of players, the East German doping program that turned athletes into chemical experiments. During the Cold War, East Germany's sports program was the envy of the world. A country with just 16 million people was competing with superpowers like the USA and Soviet Union. Their secret? A systematic doping program that involved thousands of athletes, including footballers. The program, known as State Plan 14.25, involved giving athletes performance-enhancing drugs without their knowledge. Young players, some as young as 14, were given steroids, hormones, and other substances that would enhance their performance but destroy their health. We were told they were vitamins, said a former East German footballer. Little blue pills that would make us stronger, faster, better. We had no idea we were being poisoned.
Pills. He showed me the pills. They were wrapped in silver foil, and he told me they were supplements, that everybody took them. There was nothing to worry about, and that I needed them. Back then, I trusted my trainer, so I took them.
The scandal only came to light after German reunification in 1990, when Stasi files were opened and the truth was revealed. Thousands of athletes had been systematically doped, their health sacrificed for sporting success. The human cost was devastating. Female athletes developed masculine characteristics, suffered fertility problems, and faced lifelong health issues. Male athletes suffered liver damage, heart problems, and psychological trauma. The East German doping program was state-sponsored child abuse, said a medical expert. These athletes were guinea pigs in a massive experiment, and many of them are still suffering the consequences today. The scandal raised uncomfortable questions about other successful sporting nations. If East Germany could run such a sophisticated doping program, who else was doing it? How many sporting achievements were built on chemical enhancement rather than natural talent? If you're shocked by these revelations about corruption and cheating at the highest levels of football, make sure to subscribe to Soccer Chronicles because we're not afraid to expose the truth behind the beautiful game. Trust me, the scandals we're about to cover will make these look tame. Let's move to a scandal that rocked South American football and showed just how deep corruption could go. Operation Car Wash, which started as an investigation into a Brazilian car wash, ended up exposing one of the biggest corruption networks in sports history. The investigation revealed that construction companies had been paying massive bribes to secure contracts for World Cup stadiums and infrastructure projects. But it went deeper than that. The same network was involved in rigging Copa America tournaments, buying broadcasting rights, and corrupting football officials across the continent. Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht alone paid over $30 million in bribes to secure World Cup contracts. The money flowed through a complex network of shell companies, offshore accounts, and corrupt officials. Operation Car Wash showed that the corruption in football wasn't just about FIFA, said a Brazilian prosecutor. It was a continental network that involved governments, construction companies, and football officials all working together to steal money that should have been invested in the sport. The scandal brought down governments, sent executives to prison, and exposed the true cost of hosting major tournaments. The 2014 World Cup in Brazil, which was supposed to showcase the country's development, instead became a symbol of corruption and waste. But perhaps the most shocking revelation was how normalized the corruption had become. Officials spoke openly about bribes, kickbacks were built into budgets, and everyone involved seemed to accept that this was just how business was done. The car wash investigation showed that corruption in football wasn't the exception, it was the rule, said a sports journalist. And that's what made it so devastating. Now let's talk about a scandal that hit closer to home for many fans. The phone hacking scandal that rocked English football. In 2011, it was revealed that journalists had been illegally accessing the voicemails of footballers, managers, and their families. The scandal centered around the News of the World newspaper, which had been hacking phones to get exclusive stories. Football stars like Wayne Rooney, Rio Ferdinand, and Ashley Cole had their private conversations intercepted and published. But it went beyond just invasion of privacy. The hacking had influenced transfer decisions, affected team selections, and even impacted match results. Managers were making decisions based on leaked information, players were being blackmailed, and the integrity of the sport was being compromised. The phone hacking scandal showed how the media could manipulate football, said a former player. Stories were being planted, rumors were being spread, and decisions were being influenced by illegally obtained information. The scandal led to the closure of the News of the World, criminal prosecutions, and a complete overhaul of media regulation in the UK. But the damage to football was already done. Trust between players and media was destroyed, and fans began to question whether what they were reading about their favorite teams was true. Moving to Spain, we have a scandal that showed how even the most successful clubs could be built on corruption. Real Madrid's land deals with the Madrid City Council were exposed as a massive fraud that gave the club an unfair advantage worth hundreds of millions of euros. The scandal involved Real Madrid selling training ground land to the City Council for an inflated price, then buying it back for a fraction of the cost. The deals were structured to circumvent financial fair play regulations and give Madrid a massive financial advantage over their rivals. The land deals were essentially money laundering, said a financial expert. Madrid were able to generate hundreds of millions in fake revenue, allowing them to buy the best players while staying within FFP limits. The scandal implicated Madrid president Florentino Perez and several city council officials. European authorities launched investigations, rival clubs demanded sanctions, and the integrity of financial fair play was called into question. But perhaps the most shocking aspect was how long the scheme had been running. The deals dated back over a decade, meaning that some of Madrid's greatest successes might have been built on fraudulent foundations. The Madrid land scandal showed that even the most prestigious clubs were willing to cheat, said a football governance expert. It made fans question whether any success was legitimate. Let's talk about a scandal that rocked international football, the match-fixing network that corrupted games across multiple continents. In 2013, Europol announced they had uncovered a match-fixing syndicate that had rigged over 680 games, including World Cup qualifiers, European Championship matches, and Champions League games. The network, based in Singapore, had been operating for years, bribing players, referees, and officials to fix results. They weren't just fixing small games, they were corrupting matches at the highest level of international football. This was industrial-scale match fixing, said a Europol investigator. They had corrupted games on every continent, involving hundreds of players and officials. The scale was unprecedented.
This investigation coordinated multiple police inquiries across Europe and was facilitated by an intelligence report from Europol, which was based on the analysis of 13,000 emails. The investigation has since led to several prosecutions in the countries involved.
The investigation revealed how sophisticated the operation was. They used encrypted communications, complex betting patterns, and a network of corrupt officials that spanned the globe. Players were being paid thousands of euros to miss penalties, referees were being bribed to make crucial decisions, and entire matches were being scripted. The scandal destroyed careers, led to lifetime bans, and made fans question whether the results they were watching were genuine. If World Cup qualifiers could be fixed, what matches could you trust? The match-fixing scandal showed that corruption in football was global, said a sports integrity expert. No league, no tournament, no level of football was safe from corruption. But perhaps the most shocking scandal of all was one that hit the very heart of youth football. The abuse scandal that rocked English football and showed how the sport had failed to protect its most vulnerable participants. In 2016, former footballer Andy Woodward bravely spoke out about the sexual abuse he had suffered as a youth player. His testimony opened the floodgates, with hundreds of former players coming forward with similar stories. The scandal revealed that predators had been operating in youth football for decades, using their positions of power to abuse young players. Coaches, scouts, and officials had been systematically abusing children, and the football authorities had failed to protect them. The abuse scandal was the darkest chapter in football history, said a child protection expert. These were children who just wanted to play football, and they were betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect them. The investigation revealed institutional failures at every level. Clubs had ignored warning signs, the FA had failed to implement proper safeguarding procedures, and a culture of silence had allowed predators to operate with impunity. The human cost was devastating. Former players spoke of lives destroyed, careers ended, and trauma that lasted decades. Some had turned to drugs and alcohol to cope, others had attempted suicide, and many had never been able to trust again. The abuse scandal changed football forever, said a survivor. It showed that winning wasn't everything, that protecting children was more important than trophies, and that the sport needed to fundamentally change how it operated. These scandals didn't just shock football, they changed it forever. They led to new regulations, reformed governance structures, and a greater awareness of the sport's responsibilities to its participants and fans. But perhaps most importantly, they showed that football, like any human institution, is fallible. The beautiful game can be corrupted, manipulated, and abused. But they also showed that truth has a way of coming out, that justice can prevail, and that the sport can learn from its mistakes. The scandals we've covered today represent the darkest chapters in football history, but they also represent turning points, moments when the sport was forced to confront its demons and commit to doing better. From calciopoly to FIFA corruption, from doping programs to abuse scandals, these stories show that football's greatest enemy isn't a rival team or a bad referee, it's corruption, greed, and the abuse of power. But here's the thing about football. It's bigger than any scandal, stronger than any corruption, and more beautiful than any ugly truth. The sport has survived these scandals and emerged stronger, more transparent, and more committed to integrity. So the next time you watch a match, remember these stories. Remember that the beautiful game you love has been through its darkest hours and survived. Remember that transparency and accountability aren't just buzzwords. They're essential to protecting the sport we all love. If these shocking revelations about football's darkest secrets opened your eyes to the corruption that has plagued our beautiful game, make sure you're subscribed to Soccer Chronicles because we're committed to telling the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. Hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss our investigations into the stories that shaped football. Trust me, there are so many more secrets waiting to be exposed. Because sometimes the most important victories aren't won on the pitch. They're won in courtrooms, investigation rooms, and newsrooms by people brave enough to expose the truth and fight for the integrity of the sport we all love.
This is the first time that we've established substantial evidence that organised crime is not also now operating in the world of football.